Hey there, in this video I'm going to show you how to use IPyWidgets to add widgets to your Jupyter notebook. And what the widgets do is they give us an interactive way to control a function. First thing we need to do is make sure we've imported IPyWidgets. We're also going to need to import display out of the IPython package. I like to rename IPyWidgets to just widgets. I think it's easier to remember, but you could call it whatever you want. And we also want display. I guess, okay, let's do it this way. From IPython import display, like we did in some earlier videos. And that's going to let us take control of where we draw things into our notebook. It is possible to show the widgets without manually using display. And I'll show you that first, but right after that first example, we're going to switch over to manually controlling where we draw the widgets at. Okay, so the purpose of the widget is to call a function. So we're going to make a really simple function whose only job is to print its one argument. Now, to control that interactively from the widgets module, we're going to call a function named interactive. And if we look at the documentation here, it's unfortunately the args-quargs style, but if we look down a little bit farther, we can see that we want to give it a function. We can skip this second argument, and on the last argument here is a bunch of keyword arguments, so like variable equals value. And these are going to give you widgets for each of those variables. So in our case, the function we're calling is func. The only variable is x, and I have to set it equal to something. That's going to be a default value. So I'm going to set the default value to 3. And since 3 is an integer, what this is going to do is it's going to create an integer slider, a slider that can only take integer values. We'll see what happens when I set x to different things, because you can print all kinds of stuff. But for right now, we're going to make just an integer slider. So we can see the slider has appeared here, and if I move the slider, we can see the value that's being printed changes. Defaulted to 3, and it gives us some kind of pretty reasonable range of values, -3 all the way up to 9. And depending on what number we get here, the range on the slider would change. So as you can imagine, you probably want to customize this in most cases, and we'll have to call more code to do that customization, but this is your quickest way to get an integer up and running. Now, one change we can make here is to take control of where this thing draws. So right now we're exploiting the fact that a Jupyter notebook will draw whatever the last cell or the last thing in the cell is. And if my widget is not the last thing in the cell, and I run it, the widget does not appear. So the way we get around that kind of problem here is we can attach a variable to that widget. So I'm going to attach the name GUI, which stands for Graphic User Interface. You can call it whatever you want, it's just a name. And then we're going to call display.display. So the first display here is the module display, which controls how you draw to the notebook. One of the functions in that module is display, which specifically displays things. So display.display GUI will draw our slider, and we can see it's still connected. And when you do it that way, then you don't have to worry about creating the widget as the very last thing in your cell, which is absolutely vital if you want to make more than one widget. If you try to make more than one widget without attaching a name and using display, they won't show up for us. So this way, even if there's code after the display statement, it doesn't matter, it'll still be drawn. So far we've seen an integer slider. Let's look at some other options. If I change 3 to 3.0, that's a floating point number, and I'll get a floating slider. So I'm allowed floating point values. You can see it's changing, it looks like, by 0.1. That was its default choice. But we don't even have to have numbers here. We can do text. So let's say it's equal to hello. In that case, what I get is a text box, and whatever I type into the text box is what shows up. If I type in fish, it's going to print fish. Let's try a Boolean value. We'll do true. That's going to give me a checkbox. That'll let me do true and false. What if I give a list of values? So let's say colors red, green, blue. Okay, with red, green, blue as a list, I get now a drop down, and so I could pick red, green, blue for my drop down. And the last thing we could put in here is a dictionary We can make dictionaries a couple ways in Python. So we could use the curly brackets style, or we can use the dict function. I'm going to do the dict function for this one. So we could do like red equals 1, green equals 2, blue equals 3. That's a dictionary. And if we run that, we see we get a drop down just like before, still red, green, blue, but the value that actually comes out is going to be whatever you want the second thing to be here. So in this case, I can attach words to numbers, and maybe that works better with my code. So this gives you an idea of the kinds of widgets you can create. In a follow-up video, we'll learn how we can customize the appearance of the widgets.